Good morning, Light Miser here, aka Kimball. So, you may be a little perplexed from my title here, A Swing and a Miss. I'm going to tell you about one of the projects I put together that never got sold, but was a great learning opportunity in a positive way. So, back around 2009, I want to say 2010, my little brother and I had been contemplating wanting to build some type of project in television or movies, and as part of this brainstorming time of our lives, came with this idea to create a semi-reality based special effects show about what my dad did. And as we fine-tuned the design of the show, what we ended up coming up with was a show that was a script would be brought to my dad and another host. They'd go through and break down all the effects that need to be built into it. And of course, these scripts would be very effects heavy. And then it would show them designing what they needed to do to make those effects happen, to build anything that needed to be built. And then the payoff on the final end of the show, well, not the payoff, but then they go in and show them filming of that scene, and then the payoff would be seeing the final edited scene. And we felt very strong about the concept of this show. We thought it would have worked very well. So we begged, borrowed, and stole, and put in about $20,000 between the two of us, and shot a pilot for this TV show. I talked about the strangest project I worked on. The guy did our miniature work, Caius, contacted him. Turns out that he had done a lot of work at that point on the History Channel, because he's involved with groups at that time that did Roman reenactments. So he'd been on the History Channel as a presenter, showing how Roman battle techniques worked. So he had that good look and that good sound that we were looking for. So we paired him together with my dad, brought up our first script, and we brought him out here to Southern Utah, and we shot that first episode. Now, several years earlier, my dad had fallen in line with a guy named Phil Tuckett. Phil Tuckett used to work for NFL Film. He's got just a whole pile of Emmys from stuff he did with those guys, but he helped create NFL Films out of college. And during the off season, he'd started doing documentaries and a lot of shows for the History Channel. And my dad had gotten hired a few times to go and do effects for him, and those two realized got into the same college, different years, and it just had a lot of commonality and really got along quite well. Well, 2002, my dad had gotten hired had gone and done some shots for a History Channel show that Phil Tuckett was doing. And then that summer was the Gravity Games, NBC's version of the X Games, and Phil's director of photography had gotten hired by NBC to do commercials that would be shot between the events at the Gravity Games. And it was right when I finished my bachelor's degree, a few weeks after. And so we contracted it out that I'd go as my dad's assistant, get a week of filming out there, get a little money in my pocket. Well, came time to do the show, and my dad was working on an episodic, I believe it was Haunted, filming down in LA, and he couldn't break away. So he sent me down to do the effects and sent my little brother with me as my assistant. So we get down there, and it was 4 days of doing these commercials, and then 1 day of pickup shots with Phil. And that's how I met Phil, got to work with him a little bit. Fast forward past there, in the mid-2000s, the president of the college was an old friend of Phil's from when he went to our local college, Dixie College, and the president was wanting to revamp their film department. And so he convinced Phil to come in, and he started really building up the department, focusing it on making documentaries. And so as we were designing out our show, we were able to talk with Phil, get some ideas on how he had done things with NFL films and things, if we were able to actually get this into full production, and then convinced him for our pilot to come in and direct the show itself. Now, most of it was reality based, so it was just him telling the camera guys what basically to do, and then he came in on the final day where we actually had actors and was hands-on directing. In fact, you can hear him in the very final scene of the teaser yelling "cut." we hired some of his well, one kid that was actually helping teach now, but had been a student of his, Bobby, who great DP, and he's got a fantastic career ahead of him. And then Ben, who was going to be first AD slash second camera, really had no experience. We discovered on being the assistant director, so he really just was a second camera guy, which did a great job. But when it came to the final day where we were doing the filming of the scene, where we got a lot more people, a lot more pressure and time wise, I took over basically as on the AD side just to get things going there. As part of this, we looked around because we wanted to bring in an actual grip guy. The grip guy is who sets up all the camera rigging and all the lighting, works directly with the photographer and with the director. And because we wanted to see the filming of a scene, we needed an actual grip there with actual grip equipment. Not the reality-based stuff of my dad working in a shop building stuff. And we discovered, or my little brother discovered, a guy that lives an hour and a half north of here, but lives an hour and a half the other or works an hour and a half the other direction in Vegas as a grip. And so we were in discussions with him and discovered that his wife did makeup and costumes. And my little brother and his family and me and my family had gone down to Disneyland about a month and a half, 2 months before we were shooting. Got a call from this guy and so we're in Toontown. I'm finalizing the contract with this guy. Funny offset, I think it was funny. So we hired him. He hired a company, a small truck out of Vegas with grip equipment that was right in line with what our budget was. And we hired his wife to do costumes, and those guys all were just coming in on the final day for the actual production shot. And then if you can see the website that I created around this, hollywoodf-x.com, I'll link it down below. And if you go there and watch the teaser, the beginning of the show starts showing the scene, this interior scene. That interior scene was actually a set piece that my brother and I built for the show inside at the very back of my dad's shop. Funny aside, when we went to one of the local home improvement shops to get the paint for that set piece, that pale blue, we couldn't resist. The paint color was called Aspire. We just thought it was wonderfully ironic. But we built that set piece inside the shop, and then the rest of it was filmed down at the college, coming in the hallway of one of the buildings and going out to the parking lot. Let's see. We went through and did casting to find our lead for this show, and being in the smaller community, most of the kids that showed up were 20-some-year-old kids that had stage experience. Well, when you're acting on stage, you got to fill up that whole space, and so it's very big, very dramatic, and a lot of it we thought just was really over the top. We've somewhere I've still got that footage. If the show ever took off, we were going to put it up because we just thought it was hilarious. But the guy we ended up hiring was a software developer, worked with my mom, that had done a lot of semi-professional stage work working with professional actors. And when you're doing stuff on film, you want much more subtle reactions, something that's really playing more to the camera. And he understood that, and it was a no-brainer to hire him. He just did a fantastic job. If you watch that teaser or the final scene, just nailed it. The guy on the very end of it, standing at the phone booth, was a guy my brother ran into going to Costco, who worked at Costco. I don't know how the conversation came around, but this guy was involved in local theater and comedy groups around here, and wanted to do more with acting. And I think the eye roll was a little bit above the top, but overall, the presence was there. It worked. He worked well there. Now, ironically, at this point, I can't remember that guy's name because we just got this habit of always calling him Costco. And I noticed that, 15 years later, this guy still works at Costco. More power to you. Let's see. So anyway, we got the whole thing shot, started the editing process, and in the middle of all this, my little brother, after we'd gone and done that show with Phil in 2002, had gone down to Hollywood shortly after getting married, trying to make inroads, eventually wanting to get into directing. And the best way to get into directing is you work as a PA, production assistant. So he was down there working as a PA during this time there. One of the first shows he did, which we made almost no money on, one of the people involved there, I believe, was a producer on it. She ended up partnering up with another guy and creating an agency. And so through those contacts, we were using them as our agents. And after we'd filmed it, we'd gone down and we were... Bobby also did our editing and most of the music creation for it. I mean, he's just a very talented guy. He was getting near the end of the editing phase of it. We were meeting with the agents on how to get this in front of people. And we were really gearing this show it was really designed to go on Discovery Channel. That's what we were hoping for. We designed it around that. We made sure our cameras met the specs required to do the show. A friend of mine owned a bunch of cameras that lives here in town, and his cameras met with the specs I needed, and so I was able to negotiate with him to get the cameras we needed for the week. We got an audio guy from up north. Some of the audio mix isn't great because he was running the mics, the actual hanging boom mic, while trying to mix at the same time. If we ever did a full production, we were going to actually have to do it right and have two audio guys, one running the mix, one running the boom. But overall, he did a really good job. A guy named Joseph, really great to work with. I've worked with other projects with him over the years. So the production stuff just came together really, really well. Well, the agents started shopping this around, and at this time, Mythbusters had been on the air, I think, 2 years, 2 seasons. It might have been one, but they were really they had a great numbers at the beginning, and then the numbers started going down, and we were leading into a writer strike. Well, we had scripts written for one whole season, concepts laid out for 4 seasons, and my little brother did most of the writing. I did some, but it was mostly him. And he wasn't part of the Writers Guild. I'm sure if we got picked up, they would have required him to go into it. So, there's a lot of reasons why this would have been a great replacement there. And the people at Discovery that our agents were showing it to were saying this would be just a natural replacement for Mythbusters. Unfortunately, what we didn't know at the time was that our agents didn't know people high enough up the food chain at Discovery for it to really matter. After just a couple months of really not getting any motion on this at all, we ended up through my uncle, not the uncle who got my dad in the industry, but a different uncle who'd gotten into the industry in the early 90s and was actively working on effects, through someone he knew that worked at a production company that worked with Discovery Channel. We discovered that Discovery is very finicky. They pretty much look down on any production that's brought to them. It's got to come through really someone who works for or with Discovery already, and this production company worked with. And so, yeah, they built their own shows, but they also did agent work. And so we ended up switching over to them to get it presented at the right people at Discovery to try and get this sold. And they told us we had the obvious technical skills from the teaser we put together on it, that we felt very strong about the show. Unfortunately, by the time we got it in front of Discovery, the writer's strike had ended, so we missed that great window of opportunity. And at that point, Discovery was really not interested in doing anything that was Hollywood-based, and that was the end of that show. So that's why I say it was a swing and a miss, because it never actually got picked up. But I still see it as a very positive learning experience. One, I went into, it cost me money, but I went into it with my eyes wide open. And I feel very positive of the experience. It led my brother and I going to a very creative time period where we came up with a whole ton of different show concepts. And my brother wrote several scripts. One movie script I really hope to produce and direct someday. Before I ever do it, though, I want to get some time as an associate producer for someone else to make sure that I go into it producing it right, that I don't miss any of the details. I recognize there's some education there I need. But as part of that, we even learned how to do a script breakdown, how to budget it, how to figure the timelines. So that show's actually really close to being ready to go, other than actually having money and a release deal. But it's been sitting on the back burner now for about 5 years. But again, I see it as very positive experiences as part of education. So something else that came out during this time period was we put together an idea for a complete reality-based show, but we were strapped for cash at this point. But we were able to work with the groups that we would have done the reality show with, and got a little bit of footage with them just by borrowing a camera plus some footage they already had. Put together what's called a gag reel, which a really quick synopsis of what the show would be, and but again, being reality based, we're following other people around. We didn't want to actually spend the money at that point to do a pilot on it. And through contact with my older brother, ended up finding a guy that does a lot of work in Japan that knew people in television in Japan. And he ended up shopping it, and we got it in front of one of the major networks down there. And to the final yes/no meeting, and the old guy that, I don't say the old guy, the guy that founded the television network, and he said that the concept we were going after, that they had done a 2-hour special on it a couple years before, so they weren't interested. Again, that close to getting that thing sold. On the first show, the FX show, one of the reasons why we were going for Discovery is if we could get 2 seasons at the least, we're hoping for 4, then it would go into syndication, and they've got networks all over the world, and then it's just a cash cow at that point. But we've toyed with the idea of bringing the show back at some point. Unfortunately, because of health issues, my dad getting older, he wouldn't actually be able to build effects anymore. But we've thought of the possibility of turning the show into an effects competition show, where my dad comes in as the guru, gives some advice, does the final judging. So he's not on set very much, but we get a bunch of guys, up and coming special effects guys, where they're given scripts to do, and them building and doing the effects themselves. And in fact, even to the point that the last coordinator my dad worked with, who's now doing shows down in Louisiana, he was the coordinator my dad had worked on with Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. That's the kind of shows that he does, the level of shows that he does. He's said that if we ever did that show, that as the final reward, we could promise to get that guy to work on a show with this coordinator, and he'd be more than happy to do that. In fact, if we ever put that show together, what we do is do the final competition down in Louisiana using his equipment. But we've conceptualized on how to put this together. We just haven't gone very far with it because we're not in a position right now to do it. But it's something we might approach in the future. So when you get ideas, sometimes you just got to go with it for the learning part of it. And with that, have a good day.